people will look at how we cope with the fallout and how we help the process of adjustment that you're talking about. But I couldn't offer you, I don't think, any great hope on the taxation front. Sorry about that. I probably lost the vote there, and too. So there you are. Now, in respect to the first question on about the status quo, I mean, I think that yeah, I mean, I think that is the right way forward in today's world, where you've got different nations that have come together in the United Kingdom. And look, let's be clear about it. Modern politics and modern government. No one's ever satisfied with modern government and the way that it works. It's just, you know, it's and everybody always, you know, I sometimes read about, you know, disappointments either with Scottish Parliament or devolution and so on. But actually, if you take a step back and look at Scotland now and compare it, you know, with a few years back, I mean, of course, every country has its challenges. But one can't half put to say that there wasn't also a substantial amount that's going right for Scotland. And honestly, you only have to, as somebody who doesn't live in Edinburgh and comes back to Edinburgh occasionally, you only have to go around the city and see the changes that are happening. What an incredible and exciting place it is. So I think that, you know, I'm about to try and get a situation in which in Northern Ireland we get devolved government back up again, and I just think it's the modern way to go. If you look around the rest of Europe, that is what is happening today. You know, people are trying to find the right balance with the devolution of certain things that are obviously better done within a particular country or within a particular region that's joined together with others, and then certain things that are best done at a supranational level. And I personally think that has worked, and in the end has created a better balance inside the UK. But that's the thing. And finally, in relation to China and India and Europe and free trade, well, here's what I think will happen. I think the European Union should get closer to the US in terms of transatlantic trade, and the German presidency in the European Union has actually got a proposal at the moment that I think is very exciting and that we should back, which is essentially to try to make sure that we create a more and more level playing field between Europe and America, for example, in terms of things like regulation and so on. And I remember when we, you know, this is a benefit to both of them. I remember when the Enron scandal happened, and I always remember this meeting around our cabinet table when the Americans introduced Sarbanes-Oxley, and there was a proposal put to us to introduce a similar thing in the UK. And you know, there were decisions you look back on and you scratch your head about, but there were decisions you look back on and think, well, thank goodness we did that one. And that was one of them. Now, one of the things that the Americans want to do, actually, through the course of trying to have this level playing field on regulation, is to try and get rid of some of their regulatory burdens, but we should be trying to get rid of some of ours as well through that, and creating a situation in which Europe and America can trade more easily with one another. And I don't think there's any inconsistency, incidentally, between doing that and having an international world trade deal, which we should have, incidentally. And the discussions that we will have over the next few weeks will be absolutely critical in this. And I'm trying to put together a deal at the moment with the Americans, the Brazilians, and the other Europeans, where we agree a world trade package which will allow big non-agricultural market access for our goods and services industries in return for reforms, obviously, in our agricultural system and the American system of subsidy. And the final thing I'd say in relation to this, because this is where I think, again, the economy and the politics come together, is that, you know, if I'm right in what I'm saying about the nature of our country, early 21st century, got China and India emerging and so on, we need strong relationships with these two countries. But, you know, I read a speech, and I'm seriously intending not making this a sort of practical point here, but it was a speech by one of the, you know, I think, Ian Hayden for the Conservative Party, saying we needed a an independent foreign policy from America, and we needed to retreat to a more Eurosceptic position in Europe. And what we should have instead is our own independent relationship with China and India. Again, I just think we need a reality check in the world that we live in today. You know, when we go to China or India, if we are part of not just the UK, but the European Union, we have a strong transatlantic alliance. Believe me, they are listening a lot more than if we're simply there on our own, as it were, without the other parts of that alliance together. And I think, again, that's just the way of the world. And one of the things that I think is exciting about our country today is that I think we have finally got to the point where we realise that in the sort of post-war period, when we were releasing ourselves from the empire, we fought the defeat of fascism. You know, this country, I feel today, is a country that is willing to compete on its merit. You know, that understands that in this century, you know, no one owes us a living. No one's going to say, just because we were Britain and we ruled the world once, then we've got to carry on ruling the world. And if we're smart about it, we will keep our economies open and vibrant. We'll recognise, for example, that migration could be a benefit to our country as well as a challenge. We'll recognise, too, that it's in being flexible and adaptable and prepared to modernise continually that we will succeed. And we'll recognise, above all else, that for us, the alliances that we have and the weight and power and influence we are able to generate as a result of those alliances, those are the things that politically and therefore economically will stand us in good stead with the big powers that are emerging in the world today. And we've got to be smart enough, I think, to build those alliances and keep them. Because in the end, I think that's the only way we succeed politically or economically.